Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Germany Master Class. And for me, it's a personal delight, after seeing all the brick talks that people have been giving, asking you to go to far distant lands, that finally the realization has come, hey, 46% of our market is actually just across the border, and Germany is obviously a prime target. I'm going to give you a general introduction into how I would assist a company going one way or the other, and the typical things that you would be looking out for. But why Germany? Looking at the GDP for all the countries around the UK, Germany, fantastically central country, equivalent or even higher GDP than us per individual. And it's a great market. We're doing substantial business with it, and Sven will actually be giving you further details as he goes through his presentation. Why me? Well, oops, have I gone one too far? So, sorry, I'm getting confused about my own slides now. Other parts of Germany, if you're looking at the distribution of workplaces, and you're looking at yeah, that would be a critical one. Distribution of workplaces, and you're also looking at where new companies are being formed within Germany. It's active throughout the whole of the country, although you do notice this particular area which will crop up, which is the former East, which is a land of great opportunities as well as of difficulties. So why me? These are some of the people that I've worked with. There's Andreas from Zimmermann Feinkäserei, specializing in cheeses, goat's cheeses. Expanding quite considerably in Germany, Poland, outward, and they're also looking at the UK market. We also had a delegation over looking at crowd sourcing technologies and the internet, and from the meeting that they had at the Royal College of Surgeons through to some of the other places, we wandered past some of the great landmarks within London. So the structure we're going to have with the talk is we're going to do the introduction, which we've done, and I'm then going to cover three main areas, which is what you do before you go, or what you can do before you go, when you actually undertake your visit, things to look out for, some key indicators, and then once you've established a presence in Germany, thinking about how you can grow and expand and some of the assistance that you might want to have in that area. And then we'll obviously come to the conclusion on that front. But the core concept I would like to bring to you is really, you're looking at a new market, there are differences, but basically, if you go in there with respect for your German partners, for the German country, and for their culture, you're already onto a winner, because we're seen as the polite boys of Europe in terms of the way that we deal with things. So, before you go, the first thing that is really worth doing is research your market. Make sure that you know whether your product has actually got a chance within a particular sector or area, something you may have found out through contacts that have already been made by German companies interested in your products, or you're just looking to expand, as Nick has done with his products, which are now predominantly based, I think, in Germany as a sales market. Also think about size. How many of you are actually small or medium-sized enterprises? Hands up. Brilliant. And it's actually quite a good environment to go in, because there are lots of small or medium-sized enterprises that you could use as partners and as contacts to assist you to get into that market in your field. Thinking about location, I didn't have a delegate list beforehand, so I'm not too sure what all your individual interests are. So I'm just giving you a general aspect here when you're conducting your research, looking at where's most of the manufacturing done within Germany. Darker means more and more of it done, and you can see there's a nice concentration here, more towards the south. Bavaria, BMW car industry we're quite familiar with, but a lot of other industry going on in that area. If we're looking at services, interesting that there's a counterbalance. These data were all derived from a German statistics information site. And if you're looking at construction, isn't it interesting? It's all predominantly based, or people employed are in the east, where there is a lot of regeneration going on, both from German companies and from other importers. And if you're in the agri or agri-biotech area, where are the largest farms, where are the largest agricultural areas? Interesting that they're again based in the north, in the east and towards the north. That surprised me. I thought there'd be a lot more larger areas in Bavaria, but there you go. Things you find out when you do research for these various aspects. But, now,
excuse me, just
yeah?
a real beginner's question.
Yes.
Can you just locate Berlin and Munich for us?
Berlin
Where they are?
is just about here.
Yep.
Is that spot there? Munich is going to be down here.
Lovely, thank you.
And Düsseldorf, Cologne
Yep.
is in this area.
Thank you.
So, if you do any further research or look at maps, you'll find that those industrial areas often crop up. But you'll see some other maps as you go through. But,
Chris, sorry, you have a question of you?
Just a quick one. You mentioned some German statistics and data sites.
Yes.
Could you
Statis.
share them? Sorry.
Statis, statis.de was the one that I looked at. I was searching in German, but I'm sure they've got English language pages on that, have they? Yeah, they've got it in English as well, as Sven says. So, finding contacts is the next aspect. What's the easiest way to go in and actually find appropriate contacts? Sven and I will be talking later in this afternoon about exhibitions as a potential route. And it is a great way to find out about a country. Go along, and if you look at there's a trade fair listing here, alma.de and others, you can find trade fairs in your area. Go along, wander around. I recommend it to German companies that come over to the UK. Come along to Excel, come along to some of the other trade shows that we've got, because you get a feel for the area. If you're then trying to target it further down, the way that we've worked with delegations in the past is we say, right, what we tried to produce is a long list of about 70 companies that are potentially working in your area or who might be interested in talking to you. So look at about that sort of figure, 70 companies, and then in discussion with the people who are doing research, either yourself, narrow it down to about 25 is what we do. That's the short list. And from that short list, you then approach every single company, either by telephone or by email, with the aim of getting around 3 to 5 appointments. That's realistic. It depends on the sector. Some sectors are really murder to get into. So in the UK, it's very difficult to get into the healthcare sector, for example. I don't know what your experience was the other way around, Nick. But others, IT, etc., it was quite open. It's very easy to find contacts. And you will see I've got occasional notes here. I put an item out on LinkedIn on all the groups that I'm part of, and I said, as a German or as someone working in Germany, what's your particular advice? So these are voices from people, from other independent people commenting on those. But where can you get that assistance if you don't want to do it all on your own? Now, obviously, UKTI is one of your immediate contact points, and so I direct you to Susanna, because what they are also linked to the UK embassies. And so you've got people there at the embassies who are working for you, or should I say who are supposed to be working for you, because you will find that it's very dependent on the individual that you come across. There are some fantastic people, as there are in any organisation, and there are sometimes instances where you don't necessarily get the response that you want. But try it first, because it's definitely worth doing, and if you've got engaged people assisting you, it's really great.
So can I ask you a question? So about asking somebody who speaks English.
Yes.
Would there not be an expectation that if you're trying to do business in Germany that you get a better response if you speak German to them?
Yes, there would be. The thing we have to remember is that if the simple question of how to get to the railway station 90-something% of Germans would be able to respond in English to give you directions to the railway station, but only 27% of Brits would be able to do that. And for a lot of companies, you know, it's a difficult thing. So you will find a thread coming through. Get a language expert in if you can, or someone who can assist you in those communications. But you can, you know, make the initial contact on that basis, obviously from somebody's experience here. The other area I've got down as the AHK, which is the external representatives of the Chambers of Commerce within Germany looking towards export, and that's where Sven, he's actually based in London, he's representing them, so it's another useful contact that you can get to. And then there are the individual chambers and also the trade associations within Germany. And again, depending on who you approach, you know, it's worth giving it a go because you may find actually assistance in people trying to link you together. Another organisation that works very actively is the British Chambers of Commerce in Germany. So they've got a whole listing of different companies, and again, they may be able to assist you with particular contacts in that area. And then, of course, there are the last mile providers, small companies that will be based in Germany who would be tailored to actually try and find linkages between British companies and German companies going out. One thing I would say is when you're trying to contact Germany, it's a very strange thing, is the German working times and holidays. They still believe in a work-life balance. And in fact, I had this comment from one of my colleagues. My boss at Allianz turned off his mobile the moment he stepped out of work. It almost is an 8 to 5 culture. And there's a great reluctance to move beyond that. Sunday is a special day. My son works in Bonn, and he is frustrated that he can't go shopping on a Sunday because most of the shops are closed. It's that. Early finish on Fridays is possible. Yeah, might wander down to the south to buy some wine. And generally, you're looking at a minimum of 6-week holidays with an additional 15 public holidays during the year. So sometimes you can find it difficult to get hold of some of your German contacts. But let's go on to the visit and getting there. You saw from the map, if you tilted England, rotated it around London, Scotland would be right in the middle of Germany. So it's that sort of distance that you're looking at. But as Sven said this morning, it took him longer to get here to Colchester than it did to get to an airport and fly to Berlin. It's really quite rapid. It's very accessible. So from the north down to the south, you're well covered with airports. Another route to try is actually Eurostar. If you're prepared to work on the train in a leisurely environment, it's a fantastic journey. I've done that once or twice. And within Germany, there is an excellent transport system, both in trains. They bemoan it, but in comparison to ours, public transport is absolutely brilliant, both trains, buses, etc. And then, of course, the thing that we have the reputation for, which is the autobahns, the motorways. So you can go by car. It looks very reassuring when you compare it versus the UK with our little network and the cancer of London attracting everything in, whereas you have quite a discrete, spread network within Germany. And interesting, you can pick out now some of the industrial areas referring to your question. So this is in North Rhine-Westphalia, going further south, getting down to Munich, Berlin, and then the northern cities. However, the plague of traffic jams is just as bad in Germany. Forget the dreams of an autobahn where you can race at 200 miles an hour. You could actually be crawling along at peak times at quite slow speeds. So you've travelled over, you've arranged your first meeting, you're going to go into your first meeting. What are some of the things you should look out for? Well, with Germans, it is actually quite important to be prepared, and I mean really be prepared about not only what your business is, but what their business is before you go into a conversation. Just coming again, find out what sector. You should obviously know which sector you're going to be in, where your companies that you're visiting is working, and also where their export markets are. At least have some idea before you go in. Picking up on, was it your point on the language speaker? Who's that? Sorry, apologies. Don't assume that everybody is going to be perfect in English in Germany. They may have a smattering of knowledge, but when you get into a conversation, even good English speakers may only understand. I found at meetings, when I've asked afterwards, I said, how much did you understand of a meeting with a British company? It's between 5 and 80% of what you're saying. So it's definitely worth having someone with German language experience there so that you can bridge those particular gaps. Ideally a German national, or at least someone who is perfectly fluent in the language. The next aspect is be clear who you are talking to. It's like that in any business meeting. Make sure that you've got either the decision maker or but be aware where that person is within the company. It also has an effect a bit later when I come on to greeting etiquette in terms of hierarchies and understanding where someone's role is within the company, because that's quite critical. Thing I would suggest is make sure that you've got a simple agenda. One that you've either agreed beforehand for the meeting, or one that you've brought along with you, so that they have a clear idea of what is going to be happening during the meeting and you're going through, and that already will put you in good stead in a German environment. It's like to have structure and like to know what the objectives are and where you're going to be within that particular meeting. So when you arrive at the meeting, there are certain aspects of etiquette to consider. We're quite well known for being relatively polite as a country. The Germans have something that they rigorously do, and that is they shake hands at every time you meet and every time you leave. When friends meet, they shake hands. When friends part, they shake hands. And it's the same in business. So if you just remember the handshake, which you might use in your normal business environment, you're already onto a good step. The dress code is actually less conservative than within the UK. Depends, though, on the sector. So you will have an idea really within your particular area as to what is more appropriate for it. But if you're going generally in a business suit or in a jacket and decent trousers, you'll probably be well set for the particular meeting. A key element, punctuality. If you say you're going to be there at a particular time, be there at a particular time. We have a bit of variability within Britain, for about 5 or 10 minutes. I feel uncomfortable if I do that, and I let people know. But try to be there, and perhaps even be there just a bit early for the meetings, because that makes a big difference. The other aspect is when I talk to a company business, we're talking on first name terms. In Britain, we appear to be equal, which is something that Germans who come to the UK love and enjoy, the way that we interact with people now. But I know if I'm talking to the director or if I'm talking to someone on the shop floor. In Germany, it's a bit more overt. So you should recognise and identify and give respect to the people who are in a more senior position. It's changing. There's a lot more relaxed atmosphere to what there was 5 or 10 years ago, wouldn't you say, Sven? But still, it is something that is underlying the whole system. And in part, these are journeymen. You may remember the old way that the trades used to work, that you would have an apprentice to a master. Then after a while, after they'd been apprenticed, they would go out and they would go as journeymen and work with different masters, and then they themselves would become masters. That's still an established method of advancement within Germany, certainly on the trade side. Not all of them dress up as fancifully as this, but it was just to illustrate the particular point. Names and titles are important. When you greet anybody, always greet them as Herr oder Frau. Herr for the gentlemen, or Frau for the ladies. Fräulein, which used to be used for young women, not used anymore in the sense of equality, but you do identify the differences between the gender. And it used to be very important to remember titles as well. So you might have actually introduced someone, greeted someone as doctor or professor, etc. But if you're working as equals, you're generally working on the Herr and the Frau, and you generally get away with that. So hopefully Sven will have some comments to add on that. I also had some minimum German phrases. So you're looking at Guten Morgen. Learn a few, even if you're not going to be speaking German. Guten Morgen, good morning. There's the whole list there. And then the very Denglish one, this is German English. Sorry, ich spreche kein Deutsch. Sorry is used in German. And Entschuldigung, which is the equivalent, just seemed a bit more difficult for you to say. So I thought, sorry, ich spreche kein Deutsch is a good one. But at least you're making the effort. And making the effort just makes a big difference with people. I wanted to come again to the agenda. Make sure that you do have an evidence-based conversation and that you have the facts about your business, because people will ask you questions on that during the meeting. Plan for objections and obstacles. We're very good, if we don't like something, not necessarily saying it and then not going back to the client afterwards. Okay? But a German, if they don't like anything, they will tell you, or they'll query it. And it's not being rude, it's just that is a cultural difference in that if there is an issue to be raised, it will be raised and you will expect to answer it. It's just as a part of natural conversation. I wanted to touch then on, let's say that you've gone into a meeting and you started to think about contracts or getting something organised. With contracts, if it's yours, make sure it's under English law. It just makes life a lot easier for you. But if you're working with a German client and they're setting up a contract with you, they may actually wish to have it under German law. But whatever you do, if you do have a contract, make sure that it's translated into German for the Germans so they know exactly what you're talking about. And any German contract is translated into English because you will be held to it. Okay, so contracts are actually a binding part of your work. Which again means getting a German professional to help you with the system. Payment. This is quite an interesting one. I had a debate that was going on on LinkedIn about British banks accepting payment in euros. And banks are supposed to be international, but I can tell you banks can be incredibly parochial, both here and in Germany. Make it easy for your client. Let them pay in euros. So set up a euro account, either here in the UK or have one in Germany that they can pay into, because it just makes life a lot easier from their point of view. The difficulty you may have is then when you transfer the euros into pounds, because you've got to go from one currency to another, and this is a very difficult thing for some British banks to explain. One, in fact, recommended to one English client, one English client was that they needed a special account to be set up so that they could just transfer the things over with a special rate. And the European Union has actually been trying to unify that it doesn't cost you any more to transfer anything within a country or within countries in the EU. The exchange rate can be difficult for you, especially as the pound is now increasing in value. But honestly, if you're going in there, you're going to go in on quality. You're going to go in because your products really are worth having. And I think that is the key element that you should be pushing across. If you're going by price, somebody is always going to outcompete you. But, when it comes to VAT, this is a confusion on both sides for both Germans and for the UK. But the usual thing is that you invoice giving your VAT number. And if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the VAT is actually collected in the local country. So it's fairly straightforward if you've got you invoice as usual, and if you have got a universal tax number or a universal VAT number, that smooths the way between your different accounting departments. So you've established that you're going to go into business, you want to further your market. How are you going to grow? Well, the first thing you need to do is to have a good communication route. You've been over there, but now how are you going to stay in touch with your clients over in Germany? I actually use, apart from person-to-person meetings, I use video calls. Here's a good other business colleague of mine, Uli. He's actually in dental technology, and he's on Skype. And not only does he use Skype to communicate with me, he actually uses Skype to demonstrate some of the prosthetics works that he does to dentists and to dental practitioners within the UK. Skype is great. Hangouts, Google Hangouts is now coming out as another alternative, or you can go to some of the professional systems. But have one where you can actually work on, you can have a third caller in to have the language support on that front. I see I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to skip on to the next stage. After phone, email, those are the relevant calls. If you've got a presence in Germany, have a German language website. Even if you're based in the UK, make sure that you've got a German language website. You can go down a virtual office route. You can have a representative or an agent, where it's interesting that this particular comment came from one of my German contacts about having someone actually giving them a decent basic salary and using commissions then to top up on that front, and perhaps Nick can comment a bit later on that. When it comes to assistance, talk to the regional marketing specialists in your different area, because Germany still works on a very regional or even on a town basis. There are banks that are linked to towns, and they're very business oriented. So together with your German partner, you may actually find that there is a much more beneficial environment to going into Germany and getting investment for particular setting up a business or setting up a subsidiary within that area. But above all, make sure that you've got language support all the way through, and ideally start employing or contracting people who are Germans or German native speakers. So I hope that in conclusion, I've explained that Germany is a lovely place to go to and to do business with. And basically how to prepare before you go, some of the things to look out for during your visit, and also how you might want to expand on that side. And again, I would come back to the key fact, which is respect the Germans, respect their country and their language and culture. And that's me, and my notes and my slides are immediately downloadable if you wish to have them on your mobile as PDFs, so they're accessible for any technology. You might not be able to access them from there, so if you just pass that around if anybody wanted to make notes. So that's me finished. I'm now ready for any questions from the audience. So could I have the first question, please?
Is there an economic development function within kind of local councils or whatever, local governments?
Yes. I mean, Germany is organised on a federal system. Ostensibly, it's is it 16 Bundesländer? I can never get the 16 individual states which work within the state of Germany. So you have a national interest in development, you have a regional interest in development, and then you will also find that different towns and regions within those regions also have their interests in development. So you've got tiers of contacts that you can make and establish, and who could well be happy to see you if you're seen as bringing business to their area.
Are there any changes around this at the moment on the way regions are set up? And we've seen changes in the UK, for example, and in France is...
Yeah, there are changes because there used to be a lot of money and support available for German companies coming out into the UK, and they're now under greater budgetary constraints. For example, it's been that some delegations, they used to get 75% support to come to the UK or to other countries on visits. Now it's down to 50, and it may be more targeted for particular areas. But I think if you're going down into looking at regional areas or local areas, especially in the east, there is still funding that's available there, and that will promote that they want businesses to come in. So,
Yes.
if I can take yours first, and I'll take yours second. Thank you.
It's not a question, it's more a comment. Really. I'm Graham Coker from NatWest. I just wanted to pick up what you said on the banking thing and just really to sort of say to people, I think, I don't disagree with what you've said, but I think UK banks can offer exactly what you need when you're exporting to Germany. I think what you need to do is engage your banks early and make sure you're talking to the right person within that bank. So if you talk to your relationship manager and you think, well, I'm not really sure he's giving me the right advice, keep sort of plugging away at it, because we can protect you. I agree with everything Chris said. I think you need to make yourself easy to do business with. So if selling in euros is the way to do that, you need to do that, and your bank can then advise you whether it's more cost effective and easier to have an account in this country or in Germany, and exactly how you do it. So don't sort of be scared of that side of it. You just need to make
it
sure
is worth insisting,
person.
and it's interesting that it's NatWest and HSBC and some of the other banks are now looking again towards a more business advisor or manager contact role that you've had, because we lost that for a little while. So thank you very much for adding that.
Hi, I was wondering whether you have any particular sort of advice on sort of etiquette at exhibitions. As sort of a visitor, we're at an exhibition next week.
Yes.
Just sort of the majority of businesses there will be German.
Yeah.
Probably 50%, I would imagine. Is there any sort of particular etiquette or a way to do business or gain contacts that may be different to elsewhere?
I think sorry, to take you as an example. I know, sorry, the Sweden. So I'll just send that. Basically, to do it, someone understand. They'll obviously be interested in chatting to you anyway. So it's to go towards them and say, Chris Thomas. Freut sich kennenzulernen. And ich spreche kein English. I'm sorry, kein Deutsch. Sorry. I'm getting confused now. But, and you can engage on that front. When the business cards are handed over, don't just stick it in your pocket. Do make the effort to read it, but you will generally find that people are fine on that front. And I've had the red flag.
The red flag.
So I'll finish there. So thank you very much for your time. Any questions at coffee time? We can pick those up later.
I've got one more, sorry.
Oh.
You mentioned the phrase universal VAT or tax number.
Yes.
Am I being completely ignorant? What do you mean by that? That's where we have our problems. We're in Sweden, most are not part of the European community, and Sweden and in Germany. And I have my colleagues spoke to you about a massive headache with VAT and taxes in each individual countries. And at the moment we're having to source accountants within
There is. You do have a unique tax reference and also a unique VAT reference that could be used. Which could be used within the UK.
So we're having to register with our own VAT numbers in each country to simplify. I don't know if it's the way.
Is that because you're selling Sweden to Sweden?
Effectively. We're trading within those countries.
If you're exporting from UK within EU, you just need to put your VAT number on an invoice, which you do anyway because it's a legal requirement. Just put a GB in front of it. So that's simple, that bit's done. You need to get the VAT number of your customer because that is proof they are a business, and the EU says businesses claim back VAT anyway, so rather than go through all the VAT, don't charge VAT. So it's known as an intra-EU non-VATable supply. You're supposed to write that on the invoice as well, but no one's going to take you to prison if you don't. If you have an office within Sweden, and your stock goes from Sweden to somewhere in Sweden, that's Sweden to Sweden, you charge Swedish VAT, you've got to register with Swedish VAT and Swedish VAT.
No other easier way around it.
No, there isn't, I'm afraid. That's why we don't.
Well, thank you very much, Chris.
My pleasure, thank you.